The men behind the curtain. I was leaning back in my chair, looking out the third-story window of my office and admiring the view. Normally it was just a bleak, gray alleyway, but the spitting rain against the glass smeared the light and shadows together, turning it into a shifting, impressionist vision. The bricks of the building across the street melted into a gray mountain. The mountain shifted into a darkened forest, and then lights bloomed in that forest as the last of the day's anemic sun bled from the sky, and my neighbors started turning on their desk lamps and overheads. I heard footsteps in the hall, and my doorknob rattled. I put my feet back on the floor, spun my chair around, and opened my right-hand desk drawer. I kept a nickel-plated .38 in there, loaded and ready for action at all times. I had just rested my hand on the lip of the drawer, barely a few inches away from the gun, when the door swung open and my visitor stepped inside. He was a gray man, all gray. From his rain-shine shoes to the faded trench coat to the rumpled suit and tie he wore to the top of his flat-crowned hat, there wasn't a speck of color on him. Except for his eyes. His eyes were a deep, empty black. They made me think of a shark I'd seen one time when I'd gone deep-sea fishing with my dad off the Cape when I'd been a teenager. They were the kind of eyes that took in everything, but gave back nothing. "Are you Jonathan Walker?" the gray man asked. His voice was as empty and as colorless as the rest of him. "That's the name on the door," I said, not taking my hand away from my open desk drawer. "Can I help you?" "I got a message for you," the gray man said as he stepped forward and sat in one of my client chairs. He stared for a long moment, unblinking, making sure he had my full attention. When he was sure he had my entire focus, he spoke again. "Eddie Costanzo says to find the book you and your friend are looking for, and to deliver it to the Miskatonic Library by any means necessary." I took a minute with that. I knew the name, of course. Cops, both public and private, from Arkham to Boston know the Costanzo family name, and those with sense made sure to avoid their notice. They'd just been a bunch of jumped-up street hoods a couple years ago, but word was the Patriarch had gotten in good with the Luciano clan, and that had given them some real juice along the coast. The Costanzos and their people were the hands that did the dirty work, running liquor, taking bets, and burying bodies. Allegedly. Eddie was the clan's left hand. In a family of bruisers and brawlers, he was the one with the brains. He was the one who washed all the blood off the family's money, so it was neat and clean when the tax man came sniffing around. He had vision, understanding, and his schemes were a big part of the reason his family had been elevated above the rest of the run-of-the-mill leg breakers and number runners. He was also as vicious as any other two members of his family, his old man included. Assuming he didn't get busted for something, there were whispers he was going to sit high among the 5 families one day. And even if he did get busted, there was a better than even chance he'd be able to keep running shit from lockup. What the hell does Eddie Costanzo care about some dusty old book from up Salem way that may or may not exist? I asked. "Mr. Costanzo's business is his own," the gray man said. He leaned forward slightly, drawing his coat aside so I could see the black walnut handle of the gat he had under his arm. He tapped the butt of the weapon twice with his fingertip, his empty eyes never leaving my face. "And I'd suggest you put some respect on his name." "I put all the respect on it he's due," I said. "You came to me, pal. If If you don't like the way I talk in my own office, jerk that shooter and we'll see if you can get a shot off before I give you another hole to breathe out of." The gray man smiled, his lips curling back over yellowed teeth that made me think of well-loved piano keys. There was something venomous in that expression, and we stared at each other for a moment that seemed to last a very long time. The clock on my wall counted down the seconds, and outside the rain kept falling, indifferent to what was going on in my office. Finally, the gray man put his hat back on and stood up. He made a big show out of buttoning his coat closed before he let his hands hang down at his sides. "Mr. Costanzo would be deeply upset if anything derailed your trip before it even got properly started," he said. He leaned forward a bit, bent awkwardly at the waist. In that moment, he put me in mind of a rattlesnake just before it struck. "We can finish this discussion if you return." "And how am I going to find you when I get back, huh?" I asked. I'd just been running my mouth, but the guy gave me that grin again. He slowly reached into his coat pocket. I felt a bead of sweat roll down the back of my neck. Worse, the palm of my right hand was getting itchy, and my fingers were starting to twitch. A moment later, he pulled out a business card, setting it on my blotter. "Just give me a call," he said. Then he turned his back on me, tugged up his collar, and walked out my door. I sat there, listening as his footsteps faded, my hand creeping up until I was gripping my holdout gun. With my other hand, I picked up the guy's card and looked at it. My blood turned to ice, and I felt the bottom drop out of my guts. The card was simple, white pasteboard with a basic black print and a black border. Right in the middle of it, clear as the guilt on a shyster's face, was a name I recognized. "Alonzo Fisher," I said to my empty office. Son of a bitch. I got up, locked my door, and then opened my filing cabinet's bottom drawer. I took out a bottle and a water glass, and poured myself a neat whiskey while I tried to get my heart back under control. Suddenly, this routine errand of Archie's was looking like anything other than business as usual. Thank you for staying to the end of this story. The Men Behind the Curtain is the introductory fiction to the RPG supplement 100 Whispers and Rumors to Hear in and Around Arkham, which is meant to be used for games that take place in the classic era of H.P. Lovecraft's fiction. The story is also a sequel to A Trail in the Margins, and is another step in the case that Archie and Jack find themselves on. If you want to see how things turn out, or if you just enjoy the way the story's going, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and tell all your friends about it. There should be another installment coming very soon.